Today I'm going to tell you a story so quiet it hurts, set in the unforgiving heart of the Old West, where the heat crushes hope and silence decides who survives. This is a land of dust, broken fences, and crossroads, where fate doesn't knock, it waits. A place where one small moment can pull strangers into each other's lives forever. It all began with a single figure standing at the edge of a ranch, still silent and waiting. And that moment would change everything that followed. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. They left her out there to die. Not quick, not cruel in a loud way, just slow, quiet, and deliberate. Like tossing a broken animal into the heat and letting the sun finish what human hands started. It was July in the Mojave, one of those months when the air feels dead, when breathing gives you nothing back. Ridgecrest lay motionless beneath a sun strong enough to crack old timber and blind horses that pushed themselves too far. Clay Mercer, 42, had lived through enough loss to recognize when something was wrong. He wasn't a gentleman, not after burying a brother, watching a house burn to ash, and losing the woman who once made a place feel like home. Still, what he saw that day wasn't something a man could shake loose. She stood at the edge of his land, near a fence post he hadn't fixed in years. Bare feet on scorched dirt, a dress soaked dark to the knees, a coarse burlap sack cinched tight over her head, grain cloth, no slits, no mercy. Her wrists were bound rope biting deeper than barbed wire ever dared. And yet she didn't move, didn't run, didn't cry out. She simply waited, like she already knew no one was coming. Ever seen something so wrong it makes your jaw ache? Clay swung down from his horse without a word and walked toward her slow and steady like a man nearing the edge of a cliff he couldn't see the bottom of. Her voice came out cracked, dry enough to split apart mid-sound. "Please, take them off." No drama, no strength left. Just hollow. As if those words were the last thing she still owned. Clay's hands scarred from fence wire and firewood found the knot. It had been tied tight, knotted with spite, and it took 3 long minutes to undo. When the sack dropped, what he saw wasn't a curse. It was 19 years of someone else's cruelty wrapped in silence. Clay didn't ask her name, didn't ask where she'd come from or what had been done to her. He lifted her onto the saddle with care and turned the horse back toward the cabin. The ride passed without a word. Not the kind of silence that strains, but the kind that settles when two people already know the weight they're carrying. Back at the ranch, Clay handed her a tin cup of water. She drank like it hurt, slow and careful, not spilling a single drop. He boiled a potato, gave her the larger half. Didn't explain. Didn't need to. She sat by the fire, wrapped in one of his old blankets, staring into the flames. Nearly 20 minutes passed before she spoke. Clay didn't rush her. Out here, forcing words never fixed anything. At last, she said quietly, "They told me if a man looked too long at me, he'd be cursed." Clay met her eyes without hesitation. "Doesn't sound like a curse," he said. "Sounds like cowards." She smiled then. Small, uneven, but real. The next morning, Clay found her hanging his shirts on the line. She wasn't asking to stay, but she wasn't packing to leave either. And in a town like Ridgecrest, rumors traveled faster than a rattlesnake through dry brush. The saloon filled with talk. Some claimed she was Comanche. Others swore she was a witch. One old drunk even said she was a ghost Clay had dug up and fallen in love with. Clay didn't care. He had fences to repair, a lame horse to tend, and now a quiet girl who flinched when he coughed too loudly. But as the sun dipped that evening, he felt it something shifting. Because that was the night things began to change. Two riders came in from the south road. No wave, no smile. They stopped just short of the yard, sitting their horses as if the place owed them something. Clay Mercer stepped out onto the porch, the shotgun still resting on their pegs above the door. Inside the cabin, Lila went rigid. Her hands trembled, eyes wide, like she knew these men by scent alone. They hadn't come to pass the time. Clay understood that much, and he understood something else. If they'd found the ranch now, more would follow. He didn't recognize their faces, but he knew their kind too clean for ranch work, too still for honest travelers. They sat their saddles like men who believed whatever they stared at already belonged to them. The taller one tipped his hat just enough to mock courtesy. Looking for a girl, he said. Red hair. Then he added, Where's the sack? Clay didn't blink. Haven't seen her. The second man let out a low chuckle. Bo Hanks always laughed like that, like he was sharing a joke with himself. She limps a little, he said. Still pretty if you don't mind the quiet. Inside, Lila held her breath. Her fingers dug into the edge of the table as if it might lift her away. Clay stepped down from the porch, slow and measured. She's not here. You can ride on. Silas Vane leaned forward in his saddle. Thing is, he said she ain't yours to keep. That was enough. Clay's voice dropped calm but heavy, the kind of calm that breaks bone. She ain't anyone's to keep. She's not cattle. She's not property. She's a person. The men didn't push it. Not then. They turned their horses and rode back the way they'd come. But the look they threw over their shoulders told Clay everything he needed to know. They weren't finished. That night, Lila didn't cry. She didn't speak either. She sat near the fire, turning a hawk feather between her fingers, the one she'd found along the fence line that morning. Funny thing about feathers. They always seem to appear after storms. She glanced up at Clay, her voice barely more than breath. They'll come back. Maybe, he said. By morning, she wasn't hiding. She walked the fence line in Clay's old boots, his shirt tucked in at the waist like it belonged there. When Clay asked if she wanted to stay, she didn't say yes. She only said, I'm tired of running. They came back on the third night, not 2 this time, 4. No lanterns, no greetings. Just the sound of hooves. Slow, measured, confident, like men who weren't afraid of the dark. Clay heard them before they reached the gate. He always did after years of sleeping with one ear open. Some sounds never missed him. Clay stepped outside with a shotgun in his hands. He didn't lift it. Didn't have to. Not yet. The leader swung down from his horse. Same man as before. Rafe Cutter. The name had drifted through border towns for years like bad smoke. Girls vanishing, cards stacked, whiskey debts left unpaid. Rafe spat into the dirt. She belongs to the man who paid. Clay didn't so much as blink. She's not property. Rafe moved a step closer. She's trouble. A curse walking. She heard every word. But this time Lila didn't shrink. She didn't fold into herself or hide behind walls and blankets. She opened the door, bare feet on the boards. Clay's old quilt wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes were steady. You scared of me? She asked. The men behind Rafe shifted confused. Rafe flinched before he caught himself. You beat me, she said. You sold me. You left me in the dirt and said I'd bring ruin. Funny thing is, look who's shaking now. Clay raised the shotgun, then smooth and unhurried like a sunrise climbing the horizon. You'll ride out, he said. And if I see you anywhere near this ranch again, you won't ride out at all. They didn't argue, didn't threaten. They mounted up, turned their horses, and vanished into the dark. When the sound of hooves finally faded, Lila sat down on the porch. She didn't cry. She just breathed deep and uneven, like someone remembering how, after a long time without air. Clay sat beside her. He didn't fill the silence. He didn't need to. After that night, the quiet changed. It wasn't the quiet of fear. It was the kind you earn. The kind that comes after storms pass and nothing breaks anymore. Lila didn't hide. She didn't flinch. At dawn, she walked the fence lines like she owned the light. Clay didn't ask questions. He only watched, like a man who knew he was witnessing something mend itself. Then one afternoon, a wagon crept up the trail. Slow, worn down. Inside sat a woman dressed, faded shoes, split with a child asleep against her chest. She climbed down, looked at Lila, and whispered, "I was with you in Texas, before they tore us apart." Lila didn't cry. She helped the woman down, gathered the child into her arms, and led them inside. Clay said little. He opened the barn door and pointed toward the loft. "There's room." That was how it began. No speeches, no promises. Just people who'd been discarded deciding they weren't finished yet. They cleared out the old south room. Martha Reed stitched quilts from canvas and worn shirts. Lila planted herbs by the cotton tree. Evan sorted nails by size and sang when he thought no one could hear. By spring, the whispers in town died down. A few folks waved. Some left jars of peaches on the step. No one asked questions. Lila never wore the sack again. But one day she took it from a drawer, walked to the edge of the pasture, and hung it on the fence. She let the wind claim it. She didn't follow. She didn't look back. How many people do you know who've been treated like dirt and still stood up again? How many were told they were cursed and chose kindness anyway? The strongest ones are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who keep going. They're the ones who don't wait for permission to matter. They simply do. And if her story stirred something in you, if it brought to mind someone who carried more pain than they ever deserved and still kept walking, then you already understand what the West was made of. Out here, we don't cover lives with silence. We don't let suffering sink unnoticed into the dust. We speak names. We remember faces. We tell the truth of what people endured and how they stood back up, because stories like hers don't end when the danger passes. They linger. They move from one voice to the next, carried the way wind carries seeds across open ground, quietly, stubbornly, and far beyond where they started. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. We appreciate you more than you think. If this tale stirred something deep inside, we invite you to remain part of this frontier of memories. More true stories of honor, compassion, and destiny are waiting for you here. Subscribe, share, comment, and thank you for riding with us today. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Our content is designed for artistic and entertainment purposes and may reinterpret historical themes using fictional touches. We apply AI tools thoughtfully only to support production while keeping human supervision over editing, emotional tone, and narrative coherence. We always comply with regulatory guidelines for AI-based media and avoid deepfake practices or identity manipulation. All supporting components remain legally sourced. Please ask for authorization before sharing or adapting any segment. Your respect makes it possible for us to continue telling meaningful stories.